Thank you so much for coming out tonight. It's really, it's great to see people wanting to be informed about what they're going to vote on. We don't always have that in this country, and the only way democracy works is if we know what we're voting for.
Oh, speak up.
Closer.
It's not loud enough? Let's see, does this have a volume? I can get closer. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So, thanks so much for coming. And how many of you have never been to a Public Water Now event before? Just raise your hands, I'm just curious. Great. We've been doing this for a while, 6 years now, so we're trying to reach out into the community more these days before the election. So this number that you see before you, 11,557, that is the number of signatures that we got on our petitions to put Measure J on the ballot. So that's your fellow citizens in this community that said, yes, we want public water. I'm sure most of you have seen the avalanche of CalAm's mailers and TV ads. So tonight we want to give you the other side of the story. And we think you'll appreciate getting the facts instead of a lot of spin, I guess you would call it, or maybe lies is a better word. But it really lacks any factual basis, generally speaking, because CalAm doesn't have any facts on their side. We do have the most expensive water in the country, according to a major study, the biggest study of its kind, done by Food and Water Watch, of 500 companies, 500 largest water companies in the country. We have the most expensive water. So there's no way around that. And we just wanted to make sure that this community had a choice come November 6th. So who is Public Water Now? We get called activists, those pesky, terrible activists. Well, yeah, we're citizens, and we're taking action to try to solve a problem that neither California American Water nor the CPUC seems to have any interest in solving: the incredible expense of our water and the fact that our natural water sources are overdrawn illegally. So we started doing this about 6 years ago, and we've been at it ever since, and we've held many public forums, I think about 46 at this point, over the last 4 years alone, to educate our community on the issues that we're facing and why we're facing those issues, which has a lot to do with CalAm. It has everything to do with CalAm and the CPUC. We're a nonprofit. We have about 3,000 supporters on our email list, and a lot more, as you could see, from the 11,000 plus signatures in the community. Our mission has always been to be a voice for more affordable, sustainable water solution. So that's what we're pushing against the powers that be with, is the political, the public will to get our leaders to do the right thing. We put Measure O on the ballot in 2014, and we came within 6 points of passing that Measure O, which is the same as Measure J. They're one and the same. This is our second time around doing this, and it looks really good this time. Our win was so narrow last time, and it had a lot to do with people just not really paying attention yet to how bad the water situation was going to be. But we knew, we could see, because we were going to meetings with CalAm and they were telling us what they were going to do, and it was like, oh no, if you do that, our water bills are going to double, triple. Well, a year ago, they did it, and most of our water bills did double or triple. How many people in here have water bills over $100 a month? So So the most expensive water in the country, just for your information, was figured on the $100 a month water bill. So if your water bill is $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 or $600 a month, you are way beyond what is the most expensive water in the country. So we've had 100 years of private ownership of our water. It's never been publicly owned. It's been sold from one private corporation to another. Cal-Am's owned it for 50 years, 50 plus years. And we really are the poster child for what happens when you have privately owned water. We have overdrafted natural resources. We have the most expensive water in the country with no end in sight. And we are in the minority. Right now, 87% of the people in this country get their water from a public agency. We're still the outliers. So we want to change that. And part of the problem with a privately owned utility is that their incentive is all wrong. They have a guaranteed profit. It's sort of your worst nightmare of free enterprise and government welfare all in one. They're guaranteed a minimum profit, but they can make more than that if they can do it. And on us, I'm sure they are making more than that. But their profit is not what you think it is. It's not like, well, they sell this much water and they get money for that. It's based on their assets. So when they set out to build a $320 million desal plant, there's a reason for that. That ups their profit considerably. And people have done the math now. If they can build that, which is unlikely, but if they can build it, it would double our water bills. So if your water bill is $200 now, you can only imagine. So tonight what we want to cover is the solution and why most of the country has publicly owned or community owned water. We want to explain what Measure J does, exactly how it will work once it's passed, who will replace Cal-Am. It's not public water now. It's the Water Management District that will replace Cal-Am. And we want to show you how we can afford to buy it, despite Cal-Am's claims that we can never afford to buy it. It's way too expensive. That's their typical claim that they always make in every public buyout. They tell the customers, no, it'll never, it would cost a fortune, and you can't do it, but it's very doable. We have tonight some special guests from Felton and Ojai who have been through successful public buyouts, one from Cal-Am, one from Golden State Water, Golden State Water, and they have their own tales of dealing with Cal-Am for Felton and Golden State Water for Ojai, which are very interestingly similar to ours. It's usually this cost is too much, they're not taking care of the system. This is private water's incentive is to make money for their shareholders, not to take care of the customers. They can't fail because we pay all the bills. So that's the problem. There's just no incentive there. It really isn't free enterprise, as some of the anti-government people would like to say. This isn't free enterprise at all. This is not what they think it is. They probably don't know how it actually operates. So would you hold your questions till the end, and then we'll get everybody back up here so that you can ask questions of everyone's presentation all at once. So, George, where are you?
Right here.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to George Riley, our director, Public Water Management.
Thank you. It's nice seeing new faces, and we were hoping that we would get a larger venue to make it a little more comfortable for everybody, but it's also accommodating more and more people. So this is really important to us, but I think it's more important to the community, and it's more important to you personally because you will feel the pain in the future, and you will already have felt the pain in the past, and it's not a rosy picture unless we can change it. And that doesn't mean it's going to be rosy right away, but the only possibility of having a rosy picture is if we make some fundamental changes. So let me just go through some things. Cal-Am claims, and Cal-Am has no facts to back up anything that they say. They pick the words they want, they pick the concepts they want, and they want to scare you, they want to confuse you, they want you to be a little bit alarmed at what this is all about. And so they use the words like government takeover, negative concept, seize, take it when it's not right to take, Cal-Am's assets. They say that we have no choice, or you have no choice, that once you vote yes, and yes wins, then the slate is clear, and you have lost all opportunity for choice. You're writing a blank check because nobody knows how much it's going to cost. We admit to a number of these things. We don't know exactly how much it's going to cost. Nobody does. Cal-Am doesn't either. But Cal-Am will never say it's going to cost you X dollars. Or if it is, it's a number that's not backed up by anything. You will notice in the mailers you get, they do not cite a fact with a footnote anywhere. Know that that's public relations. Know that that's BS as well. It's what they choose to tell you for campaign purposes and to sway your thinking. They don't give you any facts. The dilemma that we have as an advocacy group, local group, and there are 3 ratepayer advocacy groups on the peninsula. There's ours, Public Water Now. There's RAMP, which is Water Ratepayer Association of Monterey Peninsula. That's Ron Weitzman. And there's a fairly new group, activists, just crazy active group in Marina. They're not crazy people, they're just activists, unbelievable, called Citizens for Just Water. But there are 3 different organizations trying to get the message across that we have an opportunity to change things if it's going to work, if it's going to be feasible. And Measure O is simply I'm sorry. I've done this before. Seaside, Salinas. Anyway, Measure O. Measure J. Just do it. But anyway. Another thing you'll read that you'll see on the flyers is not paid for with ratepayer funds. Can you believe that? I mean, do you believe that? The only place they get money is the ratepayers. And when they spend it, they say it's not coming from us. Anyway, their claims, next, where are we going?
I forgot to show it.
Oh. Is it buttoned up or?
It's just here. Just this.
Okay. What I want to say about the ratepayer advocate groups on the peninsula is we have to deal with truth, we have to deal with facts, we have to cite things, we have to prove that we've got numbers or we've got things that hang together. When we talk about Cal-Am's history, we can prove it. Cal-Am can't say seize with any specificity. We have to be specific. The only way we get any credibility is not how much energy we have, it's not how many people we have, it's not how many meetings we've had. It's what are your facts, what are you presenting? What kind of research have you done? Could you find the same numbers that we found? Yes, you can. It's a pain in the neck to find them, but we found them. Most of the numbers we're getting are from some credible organization that has already done something that we haven't done, so we're just copying it. I'll mention that in a minute. Or the research we've done and the numbers that we put into our flyers, and the flyers you're going to get and things out on the front table, we've gotten from Cal-Am's numbers. Cal-Am files reports with the PUC. We've done public records act requests to get some of it. Some of it's public. It's pretty arcane, and the search process takes you places. It takes time. It's based on Cal-Am's numbers. So the truth is that the first step in Measure J is to do a feasibility study. That's required by law, and that's all we're trying to do is comply with the law. And it's the only way that we can get the facts. You don't have to believe our facts, but any feasibility study is going to have a number of professionals involved in getting that information, putting it into a readable format, putting it into some kind of plan, and presenting it to the public. Measure J demands a feasibility study, period. There is no guarantee of anything beyond that. But if it's feasible, if it pencils out, if it's possible that we can buy it, We think the numbers will prove that. But you don't have to believe our numbers, because that's the whole process we're into now. Vote yes, get the facts. It forces Cal-Am to also begin to deal with facts. But it'll force us to also deal with facts. It'll force the Water Management District to deal with facts. But that's what we want. Cal-Am doesn't want the facts. That's some clue about what the facts are probably going to say. Cal-Am doesn't want you to know it. Cal-Am is doing everything they can to get in the way. Cal-Am has done a number of things during the signature gathering. It took us to court about 2 weeks ago. We expect to maybe go to court again, but that's what they do. So there will be a feasibility study if we win, if yes on J wins. There will be public hearings before going into the feasibility study. There will be absolutely a huge number of public hearings and workshops and so on at the end of that process, because the feasibility report is going to have to be discussed in public, input from everybody, pro, con, whatever it is. But we don't know what's all going to be in it, except it's got to pencil out. Two things we know. It's got to be in the public interest, and it's got to pencil out. Penciling out means you got to know how much it's going to cost. We're not going to know that until way down the road. We don't know what Cal-Am's number is. There are ways to get a number, but we'll find it out. If it pencils out and if it's in the public interest, it will initiate a buyout process that will conclude only with one outcome if we buy it. It'll be a fair market value. Nobody's making money on this project except we create a better future for ourselves with local control, with transparency, with input from you, local leadership. Everything will be local. The money stays local, all sorts of local benefits. But it'll be a fair market value. It'll be a fair market value because Cal-Am will have agreed, and the buying side, the buyer side, the district, will have agreed. That's a fair market value when they agree. Or if they don't agree, it goes to court, what's called eminent domain, and a court with a 3-judge process, as I understand it, but that's not always the case. There'll be a court that'll look at all the facts, and both sides will present facts, and it'll come to a number. And it will say it's worth Y. Then it's up to the district or Cal-Am to either, it's up to the district to say yes, we want to buy it or not at that number. But then there'll be another penciling out process about when that number is known. It'll probably be fairly close to a range of numbers that we've already determined, and the buyouts in the past have focused on this, and you'll hear a little more about that later. So what am I doing? Cal-Am, you can look at their track record and say, do we want another 50 years of this? You know, the facts that we're looking at is Cal-Am's own history. Cal-Am doesn't want to talk about it, but they've left us with no choice. We feel like if we don't go down the road to look at the option of public ownership, if we don't look at that, we just give up the ghost, we become the cash cow, we'll continue to be a cash cow. Cal-Am's rates will continue to do everything they've been doing in the past. They'll continue to form like they'll perform in the future just like they have in the past. We will have no choice unless it's yes on J. We begin to get a choice when it passes. We already have the most expensive water in the country. Somebody's got to be the most expensive. You wouldn't choose that. You might want to be in the World Series and win, or something like that. But who in the hell would want to be the most expensive water company in the entire United States? In the entire United States. These are facts that somebody else developed. We're just putting it out there because it tells the story Cal-Am tells. I mean, it doesn't tell. So the facts that we have about the most expensive water is the Food and Water Watch survey that was done in 2015 and updated in 2017, so it's very recent numbers. Food and Water Watch is a national nonprofit, it's a consumer environmental kind of watchdog monitor research outfit. And in the 2 years between the two numbers that we say 2015 to 2017, our costs went up 68%. And that's not our numbers, that's research numbers that are based on the national survey. So what does that look like when you see it a little differently? Because words are words. But what we have is averages. Blue is public, orange is private. Those are averages. The two national numbers are on the left, two California numbers are on the right, very similar, no big deal, except the big deal is we're number one, and that's on the right. And that's the scale of the difference. It's not that we're, you know, it's not like we hit, you know, 360 batting average and we beat somebody at 358. No. That's not how we got to be number one. We got to be number one because we're outlandishly high and excessively lucrative to Cal-Am. And that's why they're fighting as much as they are. We're great to have in their portfolio. So the history that we're working with, and you know this, or maybe you don't, but you've heard a number of these things. But the water we didn't use, because we conserved.
George?
Mr. Slide.
Skip the slide. Back up. There.
There you
There we go. Water we didn't use was the water that you saved, because you conserved, the entire community conserved. Cal-Am didn't get the revenue. They didn't do any belt tightening either. They didn't lay off anybody. They didn't do anything less than what they were already doing, except there were less calls and less bills and less water produced and so on. They had less activity as well, but they didn't tighten their belt at all because they have a back door to get what they didn't collect. And you'll hear another one of those examples in Ojai. But water we didn't use, and we end up paying for it because the PUC is the Dutch uncle, or a handmaiden, or a co-conspirator, but they're definitely in the same boat with Cal-Am. And they're protectors of Cal-Am. They're not protectors of us. They're protectors of Cal-Am. And everything happens in San Francisco. That's another reason why we don't like it, because you can't see what's going on, and it's clearly out of town. They've had 3 failed water projects since they were told and ordered to create a water project. They did not initiate any water projects on their own for the first 35 years of their existence, of their ownership. They didn't initiate any. When they were told to do it in 1995, get off the Carmel River, they were told, get a water supply. They went 3 times in that direction, failed all 3 times, and sent us a bill. That's their track record. That's your water company. They want you to feel good about them. Let me just add one little sidebar. We're not upset with the people who work for Cal-Am. And it is true that you might get upset with them, you may shoot a finger at somebody or whatever it is, if it's a truck or whatever you see it. Don't do that, guys. Don't do that. They're not our enemy. They're part of us. They're one of us. They're our community. They live here, they work here, they have families, they go to school here, been here a long time. It's not the people. We're going to need them anyway. So don't give the people a hard time. Give the structure a hard time. Give the company a hard time. Give the finances a hard time. Give the impact on us a hard time. And point out their failures and how we can do better. But don't point the fingers to the individuals, please. San Clemente Dam, it's a $152 million project. Cost to ratepayers. Cal-Am on their website says it costs $49 million. Can't trust their numbers. They overdrafted the Carmel River. See, they're not stewards of the environment. They're not stewards of the resource. They're not protectors of the long-term future. They don't have sustainability in their concept of management. They have profit. And they know they have a Dutch uncle helping them get what they want, which is the PUC. But their approach has been, for water, overdraft the Carmel River, 1 supply. There's only 2 supplies here. The other is a seaside basin. They've overdrafted that. Only 2 supplies. Now they're looking at a 3rd option, which is in Marina. And Marina's mad at hell because they think they're going to do to Marina what they've already done to the Carmel River and the seaside basin. And they have every right to be concerned. Every right to be concerned. And we ought to be as concerned too, because that's not neighbors treat neighbors. That's not a regional concept. That's taking water from a low-income community, Marina, and benefiting a higher-income community. Pebble Beach, Carmel Valley, Monterey, City Grove. Marina's a working class community. These are not. Robbing from the poor, give to the rich. It's a concept that nobody likes to, Cal-Am doesn't, and we don't like to use it, but it's clearly what Cal-Am is doing. It is clearly what Cal-Am is doing. Marina doesn't want them there. Cal-Am wants them there. PUC wants to be there. We're gonna hear this week probably some kind of decision out of the PUC to see where this all goes. Cal-Am has been a disaster to us, to our bills, to our pocketbook, and to the natural resources we have here, the watersheds. current desal is flawed. This is the big decision that's coming up this week. In the PUC, there are a lot of people that are lining up on one side or the other. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. We just know this, PUC and Cal-Am are in the same ballpark for investor-owned utilities. They want to make sure there's a profit. They want to make sure the company survives. And the protector of the PUC, the protector, PUC, is going to do something, we think, that's going to favor Cal-Am. We don't know what it's going to be, and it may not happen, but we don't know yet, but it's coming. But Cal-Am's desal is flawed for a number of reasons. There's all sorts of criticism of the EIR, the Environmental Impact Report. A lot of holes in there, a lot of data that was not included. All the issues in Marina weren't even included in the consideration. There's just a lot of holes in the EIR. There's no water rights to the water that they're trying to get. They might be able to get water rights over a period of years, but they don't have them right now. There's no right to be where they are. That's another reason why it's flawed. It's taking Marina's water against their will. Our water rates, if this project goes forward, our water rates will double. And we're going to still have Cal-Am. And the timing going forward is going to be a little awkward for a lot of us to kind of understand, appreciate, because there are going to be a couple of tracks going on. What we want to do is get very, very focused on winning the election for Jay in November. That starts the ball rolling for public ownership. Regardless of everything else. If Cal-Am gets a desal or whatever it is, we'll have to deal with those facts later. Or if they're still stumbling around, we'll have to deal with that. Whatever it is, we're going to have to deal with that other picture. But we get nowhere if we don't pass Jay. That's the only way to begin to get a handle on the problem. So please talk it up. Cal-Am's desal decision coming up this week has an alternative that's possibly will be considered by the PUC, but we don't know till this till later this week. So watch your news for sure. It'll be all over the news. It'll be either Cal-Am will be very happy, or Cal-Am will be very sad, or we'll be very happy, or we'll be very sad, or it won't matter. I mean, it is what's going to is. It's going to be what it's going to be, and we're just going to have to deal with the outcome. But what we do know is this: we've had 50 years of Cal-Am with no water supply, high costs, failed projects. We pay for the failures. The costs continue to go up, skyrocket up. You don't get to be #1 in the country if you haven't done something to make that happen. And we know it. We should not be willing handmaids to that process. We should find an alternative. Community ownership is that alternative. The opportunity is this November. It's going to take everybody out doing what we think is right, which is giving all of us a choice and a chance. So we're saying that public ownership is the answer. Most of the country, the vast majority of the country already get their water from public agencies now. We just want to be like Mike, or whatever they say. Why can't we be average? When do you ever ask to be average? Oh, I'd love to be average. But public water takes the profit out of water. It removes the perverse incentives that exist with the corporate water service. They like infrastructure projects, big projects. They don't like to maintain and replace pipes. They would like to install new pipes like 2 miles at a time, as opposed to 25 feet of pipe replacement. That's why condition of pipes get worse and worse over time, because corporate utilities play the game of massive projects down the road. Public agencies don't like to do that. They like to maintain things along the way. That's the pattern. That's a pattern of difference between public and corporate. We want local control. We want sustainability in the priorities. We want local access. We want to see the people who are making the decisions. And we have choices with a public structure, public ownership. So what does, maybe I've already done this, what does Measure J do? It requires a feasibility study. The first step is to do a feasibility analysis. It'll take about a year. 2 issues: it's got to be in the public interest, and it's got to be financially feasible. If those two factors exist at the end of the consultant review and the public process that's going to be part of that, then, and then we will have the facts. Then the decision to go forward is something that we'll all be involved in again. And I'm not saying that we don't know where we're going. I think we do. We absolutely know where we're going. And we know where we're going because we've done a lot of research on Cal-Am, we've done a lot of research on public ownership, we've done a lot of research on what we think the public structure should look like and can provide the community. But more than that, we've done research on Cal-Am. They're not your best cousin. You know, it's the one you don't invite to Thanksgiving. You're glad when they don't show up. Nobody's proud of Cal-Am. It is very hard to find somebody who really supports Cal-Am. When you ask them if they do support Cal-Am, what is it they like about Cal-Am? Well, you know, it's a big problem doing this other stuff. They don't have a good reason to support Cal-Am. They would just like us to go away. Who would take over? It would be the Water Management District. They have all the law, all the structure that exists right now. They don't have the staff, and they haven't run a water service before. But they've been a higher performer than Cal-Am in the same period of time that Cal-Am has had, if we're going to compare what they've done. They've been in existence since the late 70s. They have the authority to own, operate, acquire, build, buy, contract for water supply, water services. That's the only option we have for an agency that can go forward. They are public, so they're transparent. Their data has to be available to the public. Their procedures have to be public. They've developed 5 new water projects. For an agency that's been accused of doing nothing, they've got 5 water projects under their belt. And Cal-Am, who's been at this a lot longer and has been ordered to perform, has 0. Who do you want on your team? Can we afford to buy Cal-Am? There are several things going for us. We know that in the world of utility accounting, there's a phrase called the rate base. And the rate base is a number that represents at least some version of book value. We have a starting point on how to look at how much it's going to cost us. Cal-Am's base rate is about $150 million. That's very, very affordable. $250 million may be very affordable. But the rate base is at least a starting point. And we know that number, and they know that number. And most of the settlements that have come out in the future have that kind of in the equation. Maybe it's plus 10%, plus 30%, or 1 point, whatever. Some version of being, that's a starting point. It'll be something probably above that, not necessarily. Also, we also have access to public bonds, as opposed to everything Cal-Am finances with corporate financing is about 7-8% interest cost. Public bonds are like 4%. So every capital project going forward under public ownership would be much less costly because of the access to public bonds. Another little fun thing we've done. This is really fun. I mean, this one is really fun. Cal-Am has to file a financial statement with the PUC every year. And we've had about 5 or 6 years worth of looking at them. We just picked the most recent one, which is about a year ago. This is a 2016 financial report from Cal-Am. They don't put it together this way. It's just a list of numbers and columns and this and that. But is there a pointer here? Anyway, the blue, we can identify all those costs in Cal-Am's own numbers. The green, same thing. We can find those numbers. The orange, we can find those numbers. And we know in the lead, Cal-Am's $60 million revenue. We know what the revenue was. So we can know, take the 60 million, subtract the blue, the green, the orange, and you get what's left over. What's left over is the red. We call it profit. Cal-Am says, we don't make that kind of profit. Well, their own reports say, well, what do you call it then? We know it's in that ballpark. We know the number is that high. We know the dollar amount is that high. We know the percentage relationship is that high. Cal-Am doesn't call it profit. We do. But there's It's largely guaranteed too, because when Cal-Am goes to the PUC, it gets approval, they get a 3-year budget, and they're allowed to earn what has been approved in the budget. Not necessarily what their experience has been during the year. If they undercollect because of what we conserved, they go back to the PUC and say, well, when we said we were going to earn this money and we thought they were going to get all this water, we're going to give the water, and yet you conserved, so their numbers didn't reach that point. They don't care, because the system, which we're fighting, it's not the employees, it's the system. The system allows them to go back to the PUC and say, we're this kind of short. You told us 2 years ago that we could collect this kind of money. Therefore, we've earned it. Therefore, approve it. That's the 64 million we mentioned earlier about you conserved, didn't use the money, they didn't get the revenue, but they got it later because of the system. Not because they're mean people. The system is bad. And these numbers are all publicly available, except the red. But if you find the blue, the green, and the orange, and you find the size of the pie, it's sure simple math to do the rest of it. And that's what we've done. I've been told not to say this too many times, but I'm going to say it maybe a second time. We are a cash cow at Cal-Am. And it's largely because of the red. So there have been successful buyouts, locally. And we have 2 representatives. I think we're going to start with Richard Hajas. Did we agree on that? Okay. From Ojai, and then Jim Mosher from Felton Flow. Richard has been a general manager of Water District in this neighborhood. He did most of the, I want to say all, but I can't imagine one person did it all. Maybe he did do it all. He did the feasibility study. I mean, he's a professional. I'm not. But he did a professional study, and that was the feasibility study that Ojai used going forward into court and where their entire experience was. Jim Mosher, we'll get to him. He was a community leader and very much active in the community group process going forward. So anyway, what we're going to do is start with Richard, with the Ojai story, and then we'll hopefully get back to some Q&A a little bit later. It's all Do you might have a question right now or anything that's just bugging you like crazy?
Yes. From your talk, it seems to me the problem is not Cal-Am. The real culprit is the PUC. The PUC is...
I'll repeat it.
The PUC's duty is to make sure that we are represented, the public good is represented in any rate hike that they allow Cal-Am.
The question is, we're looking at Cal-Am, we should be looking at the PUC, because the PUC is the one that's normally responsible for the problem that we have.
Go back to the mic.
No, I'm not gonna go. That's only partly true. The two are hooked in the hip. They are together. They have to be together. That's the structure we have in California. It's the structure every other state has. You have a corporate utility, they have a state oversight structure around it. The responsibility of the PUC, first of all, is to the investor-owned utility, the corporate structure. And they say it in 3 ways. They say, we will guarantee you the right to earn a profit. And let's assume you're in business yourself. And you just find out, would you like to have this on your side? By law. You're guaranteed the opportunity to make a profit. You're guaranteed that you're available for your investment. You're sufficient quality to attract investment capital. So first of all, guaranteed profit. Second, you're guaranteed to have a position that attracts capital. Third, your bottom line will be positive. Now, I'm going to be a barber or a car wash person or a restaurant owner. If I had all 3 of those things, you can't lose. You just cannot lose. Because it's guaranteed in the structure that we have.
What I'm worried about is this.
Are we ready to go?
We'll come back to it.
All right, we can come back.
I am going to use the mic. Can you hear me? All right, my name is Richard Hajas, and I'm from Ojai, California, that's south of here. We're much smaller than Monterey, but we have a lot of things in common. We're a city that depends on tourism to support our street paving projects and police protection and all that good stuff. So we have a lot of the same culture that you have here in Monterey, including no parking. But we are much smaller. We only made up about 2,950 connections. We have a population of about 5,000 people. The players in our particular process was a Golden State Water Company that's much like Cal-Am. The Casitas Municipal Water District, which is the local water agency that we asked to take it over. Ojai Flow, which is a group that I belong to that spearheaded this project, and the California court system that played a very large role. The first thing I was asked to talk about is the cost and how we developed that and how well our estimates turned out. And the way we went about it, there were three primary elements to the final cost for us to take it over. The first is obviously how much was it going to cost to purchase the system. The second was how much money we were going to need to do battle through the legal process. And then the third, which is a very important one, we complained that our system was not well maintained. So how are we going to repair that system once we took it over? The cost element, how we figured out how much Golden State was worth, is a complicated moving target. Because what happens is on any given day, the company is worth as much money as they have invested in undepreciated assets. And they are constantly reinvesting in various projects. So we knew this was going to take a long time, and we couldn't just take a number in 2011 when we started and think that that was going to be good 5 or 6 years later. Golden State produced a master plan in 2010 that they presented, presented to the PUC that listed $24 million in capital improvements that they intended to do over that 10-year period. So we could check off those projects and add those to the capital value of the facility each year. So we had this moving target. As they invested in the system became worth more, but the needed capital improvements that we would have to make theoretically became less, and they generally did. They didn't do all the things they should have, but generally they did. The other thing is, as time went by, the legal costs would continue to accumulate. So with that moving scale, we determined that we estimated that the cost of the buyout, including capital improvements, would be around $41 million if it occurred in the next, between 2011 and 2018. So once we were able to convince the water district to pursue this, which they finally did, and in February 2013, they adopted a resolution forming the improvement district and set an election for August 2013. Within just a couple of months of that date, Golden State Water filed an injunction to stop the election. The election went forward. The judge said he wasn't going to interfere with that. We'll deal with it after the election. The bond issue, which was a $60 million property bond issue to help fund this, was passed by 87% of the vote. And that's the $60 million was much more than the $41 million that we estimated, and the reason for that was Casitas if it was going to go to war, they wanted to go to war with a big war chest. So they wanted enough money to see it through to the end, and we determined that $60 million was affordable, and we would be willing to go that far. So we had the election. 30 days after the election, Golden State filed an injunction to overturn the election. They lost that case. In April of 2014, they filed an appeal to overturn the election. In May 2015, they filed to Supreme Court. And you can see the years ticking away here as we're paying, I think we had the second highest water rates in the United States. We were pretty close. In July 2015, the Supreme Court fortunately expedited our case and returned that they would not hear the case. So they were not about to get involved in a community that had elected to tax itself. And finally, in February 2016, this is 3 years, after this process started, Casitas finally was able to issue bonds. They couldn't issue bonds while these court cases were going on, and they couldn't start eminent domain without the bonds. In February, they started the eminent domain process, and there's a whole process that both parties are legally required to do certain things. And the first thing was they set the eminent domain hearing for June. The other thing they did is they set a mandatory settlement agreement for April 6th of 2016. After almost 4 years of legal battles, they met on April 6, 2016, and I'm sorry. Get the year, there's so many years in here. The 2016 period was another just playing with the various cases. But Casitas makes a formal purchase and they go through all that process. And then in January 2017, 4 years later, we finally have a mandatory hearing or meeting and a settlement conference for April 6, 2017. Now that's 4 years later, more than 4 years later. So 4 years it took us to get to here. Casitas offered them $23 million. That was based on the appraisal. They wanted $120 million. 7 days after that conference, about 60 days before the first hearing on eminent domain, Golden State came back and said, you can have it for $30 million. But you got to take it by June 15th. So Casitas took possession of it on June the 15th and agreed to the $30 million purchase. Now, the $30 million was for the actual system that we bought. These are the details of the purchase. $30 million for the system, but they'd accumulated $4 million in retroactive rate increases and what they call the RAM charge, which is all those surcharges you have on your bill for water that you didn't buy. So there were an additional $4 million that we had to pay. We'd have to pay that anyway. You pay it over time on surcharges, or you pay it up front. So the total cost was $34 million. The total cost of the acquisition was $34 million for the purchase and paying off the RAM charges. Fortunately, we only accrued $1 million in legal fees over that 4-year period. And a lot of it had to do with Golden State threw everything they had at us, but I think really had a bad case. I don't think they intended to win. They were just delay. So our attorneys, fortunately, didn't spend that much money. And this was all of the administrative costs and everything. Casitas believes that they need $15 million to do the necessary improvements to the system, which they are planning to do and they're working on right now within 5 years. So the total cost to us was $50 million. The original cost back in 2011, the original estimate was $41 million. We didn't know about the RAM charges, which is $4 million of that. But we were pretty satisfied that we came that close when Golden State's first estimate was 120 million. Why did they suddenly agree to this? We think that they didn't want to go through the eminent domain process. They rarely do that unless they think they can win. And I think they were pretty sure we had a strong case and they didn't want to go there. I don't think they wanted to set a precedent on how much their system was worth. They would rather say they negotiated a sale than say a sale was forced on them. Ojai was a pain in their neck. That had a lot to do with it. Just like here, we went to all those PUC hearings. We gave them trouble on every time they tried to do something. Didn't help, but it irritated them. So I think they were pretty tired of us. We're a lot smaller than you, so they probably didn't care that much about getting rid of us, but still, it was a constant effort for 8 years. So what is all that worth to us? Well, one of the things you're going to hear is how we didn't really save money, or somebody else that did this doesn't really save money. I will tell you, you can talk to anybody that lives in our community and they know their water bills have gone down. Now, we voted to add an assessment to our property, and those assessments range from about $325 a month, a year, to $2,000 a year, depending on the property size. The typical property has an assessment of $466, I think it is. The first year savings to the community was $730,000. And you have to add zeros for you guys because we're a lot smaller. Our total water costs were $6.2 million. So we reduced that by $730,000, and that includes the bond payment. So this is over and above the bond payment. The typical customer, which is someone that uses 13 units a month on a standard residential lot, including the bond payment, saves $366. And what happens when you're successful at this, Golden State's rates are frozen in time. They don't go up anymore because they're gone. And these numbers are all based on Golden State's 2016 rates compared to Casitas Municipal Water District's 2018-19 rates, which have gone up since 2016. So these are real savings. One of our biggest issues wasn't how much we were going to save right away. Ours was for the future. We wanted out of this vicious circle. And we looked at 35-year history of Golden State rate increases versus Casitas Water District rate increases. Golden State averaged 7.2% per year every year for 35 years. Casitas was 4%. So we used that number to get an idea of what the savings would be over the next 10 years, including paying for the bond. For the community, we estimate we'll save $25.8 million in 10 years. And again, you all can add a zero to it. And the typical customer will save $8,500 or $8,500 a year. Just to give you an idea, I have the highest assessment. I own an acre. So I paid $2,050 a year on my assessment. In the last year with Golden State, my water cost $3,470. Last year, the same service from Casitas cost $780. So I easily paid for that bond. These are some of the things you're going to hear. That all the costs are not included, all the costs are included. We paid for all of our capital improvements that we needed, and they're being done now, and they're paid for. The rates are going to go up because of those improvements. No, they're already paid for. And you're going to lose the protection of the PUC. The real story is we would have paid all of that money it cost to buy out Golden State, plus the RAM charges, the surcharges. We would have paid for that anyway over time. And we would have paid the cost of capital improvements at 8 to 10% return on investment. Well, we did it at about 4%, and we're going to get them done right away. Anyway, our organization was successful, and we're all glad we're pretty much done with this. But we do have a website, Ojai-Casitas.com, that we're going to keep up for a while. There's a wealth of information on there that we would be happy for you to take a look at. There's feasibility studies, there's history on all these court cases, so you can kind of get an idea of what was going on. So good luck with your effort, and
Yes.
we'll be hoping the best for you.
Cal-Am does not want you to forget about Felton. I don't know why, because they lost Felton, but it's always in their material.
Yeah.
But we have Felton here to talk to you. This is not Cal-Am's version of Felton. This is a real Felton person, Jim Mosher, with the facts.
Hello, Monterey. It's great to be here from the north side of the bay. And my story is going to be very similar to the last story. The details are different, but the themes are exactly the same. In Felton, we had Cal-Am. They took over our water district in 2002 when they bought out Citizens Utilities. At that time, according to the PUC filings, we were valued at $2 million. Now, Cal-Am claims that we said that we thought it was worth $2 million. And 6 years later, when we went into eminent domain, that's not true. What we said was, when you got it, it was valued at $2 million, not by us, but by the PUC. So, $2 million in 2002. So that was one of their first lies. But we faced a lot of what you faced. We had skyrocketing costs, same as in Ojai. There was no accountability. We called the Public Utilities Commission the Private Utilities Commission because that's exactly what they did to us. We went up there 3 times protesting rate increases. We were getting proposed rate increases of 10, 15% a year, just like you. And our rates were skyrocketing. We were right next to a public utilities district. People 1 block away from some of our customers were paying half for the same water delivery. We also had a company that had no interest in regional planning, no interest in conservation or environmental protection. We live the San Lorenzo Valley Water District. We live in the San Lorenzo Valley. We're very concerned about protecting our river valley. It's a critical issue and asset for all of us who live there. So when we started our takeover project, we organized an organization called FLOW, Friends of Locally Owned Water. And Cal-Am started doing exactly what they're doing to you. Lots of misinformation, lots of scare tactics, lots of blatant lies like the $2 million lie and mischaracterizing what we were saying. So let's talk a little bit about the cost. When we started the process, Cal-Am said that the system, 4 years after they bought it, was worth $48 million. It went from $2 million to $48 million, according to them. They thought we might not notice, I guess. When we got into the eminent domain process, they came down from that half. They said, we'll sell it to you for $24 million. We had independent appraisals. This is by the San Lorenzo Valley Water District, the public district that ended up taking it over, who we went to and asked for them to represent us. The appraisers came in at $7.6 million, which we thought was certainly reasonable given what it had been valued just a few years earlier. Through the process, we passed the bond. Our bond only passed by 74% of the vote, so Ojai beat us on that one. We ran a citizens campaign just like you're running, door to door. Our mailboxes were stuffed with lies and scare tactics by Cal-Am. It really worked against them in our case because we went to door. People were sick of Cal-Am. They knew it was a bunch of lies, and we really built a strong community network to take them on. So we passed it. And then we went into the eminent domain process, just as Ojai did and just as you will, assuming everything goes according to plan. As I said, Cal-Am claimed it was worth $24 million, they'd sell it for $24 million. The Water District offered them 7.6. I won't go into any of the details, but it's the same process. Delay, delay, delay. Lawsuit threats, they took us to court because they claimed that our ballot argument was false, just like they did to you. And we took them on, we won that just like you won. And it was just a delay tactic. They were just trying to raise our costs. They figured we were a bunch of bumpkins. We didn't know what we were doing, and they'd have high-power attorneys take us on. We surprised them. So we passed the bond measure. We go into the eminent domain process. Delay, 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 and then it comes down to the week before the trial's going to happen. We had a very strong case, just like Ojai. We were going to have a jury making the decision. It was going to be a Santa Cruz County jury. They did not want to have this trial go forward. We kind of knew that, but we had the plan as if we were going to go into the trial. They started actually seriously negotiating, and they said we could have it for $11 million. The Water District, remember now, the Water District is representing us, but the ratepayers in that Water District were not going to be paying that. We're only 1,400 households, by the way, so we're even smaller than Ojai. We were going to pay that. We were not entirely happy that they went over $3 million from what we thought was an absolutely fair market value. But I understand their decision to decide to do it, because it would have been more, just like in Ojai, more delays, more lawsuits, more costs, and if somehow Cal-Am had won, it would have been a major hit for that water district, and they didn't want to take that risk on if they thought they could get a price that they could afford. Our bond was for $12 million, $11 million for the purchase, $1 million for the cost. Ojai did much better on their costs because we spent most of that $1 million in the process. So they spent the $11 million that the bond raised to buy the system. Cal-Am also demanded $2 million more for land that they owned in the valley that was not associated with our purchase. That's why you have the $13 million price tag. $2 million of that came from the Water District to buy watershed land. So it was a total cost of $13 million. The ratepayers, we in Felton, who paid for the cost of that water system, paid $11 million. It came out to about $450 a year, $37 a month is what we're paying to buy our system. So that was the cost. Now let's talk about rates for just a minute. At the time of the buyout, we were paying $69 for 500 gallons of water, the average amount that people were using. And we were facing 15 to 20% rate increases every year from Cal-Am. We are now paying $110 for that same amount of water, and that's 10 years later. So we've had a rate increase of about 6% a year. Now compare that to what you're facing with Cal-Am in that same period, which is somewhere in the range of 16 to 17% a year, which is what we would have had. That's what was happening in our district, the same as with you. Now, we have a unique small district. It's going to be more expensive to deliver water in Felton and in Monterey, partly because of the size, partly because we have mountains everywhere. The main cost of delivering water is electricity to get the water up and down the mountains. So it's expensive. We also had a lot of delayed maintenance. Cal-Am stopped taking care of our district as soon as they bought it. So, and the water district didn't fully realize how much delayed maintenance was going to have to be dealt with. So we've had some rate increases that we had not anticipated. Still, we are paying, even if you don't take all of that 17%, we are saving money from moving from where we were then to now by having a public water system paying at a relatively high for public water systems, 6% a year. It was only 2 or 3% before we joined them. So we are still saving money, and you were paying a little over half of what we were paying when we bought them out. You and we are now paying about the same. We have some really expensive water also in Felton. But you caught up with us in the period that you stayed with Cal-Am and we went public. And the other thing to remember is you're renting your system. We're buying it. So we're already 6 years in, 10 years in 30 years, our children are going to own this system, and we don't have to deal with the Private Utilities Commission, we don't have to deal with Cal-Am and all of their lies. So we are overjoyed with the success that we've had. And all this BS that Cal-Am is trying to spread around your community, that we're unhappy in Felton about what happened, and we're paying all this money, and there's been a total outrage, it's all BS. Absolutely BS. Now, they can find a few people in Felton that are unhappy. That happens everywhere. But the overwhelming majority of ratepayers in Felton are very happy because of the savings of the money and getting them out. So having said that, I want to tell you that the thing that motivated me most for doing this was not the money. It was the fact that water should be a human right and not a commodity. And this was the theme. This was the theme of our community group from the get-go. We wanted to have our water be controlled locally so we could make decisions about it. We could ensure that our valley was protected and that the people making decisions about water were taking into account the public interest, riparian protection, water protection, protect our river, protect our valley from fires. We wanted regional planning, and that's what our water district does now. Cal-Am wouldn't attend any regional meetings. They have no interest in cooperating with anybody. Think about now that we're dealing with climate change, all of these fires. Our valley is a high fire risk area. We need a water district that understands this and does stuff to protect us and prepare us for the changing that are coming with the climate. Cal-Am has absolutely no interest in any of this. You are part of an international movement. When we did this 10 years ago, we found out that Bolivia had had a civil disruption and kicked out a government as a result of the government trying to get Bechtel to take over their water district and raise their rates tenfold overnight. There's international actions in every continent in the world to make water a human right. And this is what motivated us. So absolutely the costs have to be reasonable. People have to afford it. And we were able to show that and we're able to do it. Just as you're going to be guaranteed that through the feasibility study that you're taking on. But remember that this is bigger than just the money. This is a fundamental issue for the future of humans. What the companies understand is that we're going to have chronic water shortages from now on. And what do they see? They see blue gold. My gosh, it's a commodity that's going to be scarce, and if we sell it, we can raise money and we'll make a lot of money. And they've got the PUC right in their back pocket. It's not free enterprise. This is corporate welfare. This is a setup where companies are getting guaranteed profit by the government. It's absolutely crazy. We went to the PUC multiple times. It was such an education for all of us in that community. So I urge you to put all your effort into this, get this done. I know you can do it. We did it in Felton. If we can do it in Felton, you can do it here. Go team.
Go into some Q&A time? Not quite yet. Not quite yet? Finish up the presentation. we'll go to Q&A in just a minute. Those of you who feel like you need to leave, don't forget the front desk has sign-up sheets. We're still looking for volunteers. There's still work to be done. There's signs to put in your yard or your neighborhood. You can help us a little bit or a lot, but every little bit helps. It's hard to follow Jim on that motivational part of his, but we have a choice coming up. And the choice is whether we can make it a real choice. Choice to vote yes or no, first of all. But a yes vote gives us a choice on how we want to go forward. It brings into play how we're going to treat climate change. It brings into play how we're going to treat elections. It brings into play how are we going to treat our watershed. How do we deal with the money that is collected, and does it stay in our community or does it ship out? There are all sorts of economic issues. There are all sorts of principles. There are all sorts of environmental issues, economic justice issues. There are a lot of concepts involved in this. We have a choice. We can create the choice of having a legitimate debate of public versus private. We debated here in order to get the yes vote. We need to get the facts. So a yes vote helps us get the facts. We need to stop Cal-Am's desperate effort to preserve their cash cow, to preserve their asset, their income stream. This is a huge financial gold mine for Cal-Am. And just like Jim Mosher said, it shouldn't be for profit. It should be for public good, should be for public priorities, should be set in a public dimension or a public interaction, a democratic process. And it's a required resource. There's no competition for this. It's the only water we have. And we think 100 years of profit, water for profit, is enough. So you can help us make history. But it's not just us making history. It's the future we're talking about. We're talking about what's affordable down the road. Who's going to be interacting on your behalf? What kind of elected officials are going to be running things? So far, they've taken a big dive. They did because they don't play a role in the structure that has Cal-Am and the PUC making all the decisions. They've recently played a role because Jason Burnett and other mayors got involved several years ago just trying to get a resolution. But they didn't get a resolution. In fact, it ended up being delayed far more than anyone ever thought. But we have a choice going forward. We still need volunteers. Let me just back up on. This is a generational thing because it's going to take several years in order to even get the decision. I mean, let's assume we end up buying it. To get to that point will take several years. And then implementing beyond that. It's like a mortgage on your house. It's going to have a big bond. You don't really see the benefit of lower rates until you pay off the bond. But we've had evidence that we can cut into the increase. We can actually lower rates in some cases. We have a tremendous opportunity to do that in this community simply because of the chart that we're working with. We're the highest cost rate now. We have more fudge room in the cost that Cal-Am is collecting, or the money that they're collecting. We have more flexibility within that total than the other communities had, which had a tighter total, a smaller pie. We have a huge pie. And there's a lot of wiggle room in there about how you finance it and how much you can afford and how much improvements you can make. Even if Cal-Am, let's just assume the worst. Let's say they get a desal, they start building it, and we're 10 years down the road in this process. I don't, please me. That's not what I hope. I don't think it'll happen. I think we're maybe in a 4 to 5 year cycle. But let's say they build a desal. Whatever they build will be useful. The problem is Cal-Am makes a huge profit off of that. We will refinance, whatever is in place, we will refinance that with public bonds, not corporate bonds, and instantly see a reduction in cost. Instantly. Even if it's big, it's still affordable because the pie is the way it is. I don't want to, anyway. Glad to see you here. We have time for some Q&A if you want, and I'll start over here. I want you guys going to stand up and then kind of take whatever it is. We'll start over here and then come over here. Yes.
So this question's for Jim.
Use the microphone. Have to use the microphone.
There's one over there.
Turn it on those buttons.
So this question is for Jim. Soft. Is this on? Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So this question is for Jim. So CalAM's argument, Artie Felton, is they're going to say that ratepayers are paying more now because of the property tax assessment than they were before the buyout. I know that's what they're going to say, so can you please respond to that?
Yes, when we joined the public water district, our rates for the water instantly went down. Not as much as the bond payments, so we were paying a little more than we were before. The question of whether we're paying more now than if we had stayed with CalAM is hard to answer because we don't know what CalAM's rates increases would have actually been. Based on the history of CalAM, based on your history here of your rate increases, I can say that most probably we are paying substantially less, even with the bond, than we would have if we'd stayed with CalAM. CalAM doesn't, they want us to compare our rates now to what we were paying 10 years ago when we were with them. But their rates don't, as you know here, their rates do not stay constant. So it's unlike what happened in Ojai where they can have some specific numbers and know that they saved money even with a constant rate after 2 years. We can't give you the exact amount that we're saving. But I can say this, that $34 a month that we're all paying to buy the system, that is a really, really good investment because it means that we will control our water system. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
So, first I want to say thank you to all of you for what you're doing. I think all of your arguments and all of what you're doing is very elegant. It's very much to the point. I have spent most of my life in that 87% where there were public utilities. When I moved here and I wanted to remodel my house, and they said, "Where's your water credits?" I said, "What are water credits?" I wanted to build an assisted living that was affordable for people in Monterey here. The city thought it was terrific, the planning commission thought it was terrific, and then they asked me where I'm going to get my water credits, and I said, "Is this obscene or something? Is this a joke?" So the whole thing is more than just the money. It affects the whole planning of a community, a planning where you can't even put in something like affordable assisted living for people who actually live here and need to be able to move to some other stage of their life. But I understand the opposition. I understand the tactics. I understand the corporate greed and how it operates. So the other night I saw an ad that CalAM put out by a citizen who says, well, we're going to lose all of these wonderful benefits that CalAM gives to the community. I mean, I thought they were talking about Pebble Beach, Foundation or something. But it was CalAM that was doing all of these wonderful things, and we wouldn't have all of these benefits because of the taxes that are paid. So I'm asking you the question, how are you going to deal with the ads to most people who are not going to hear your elegant presentation? Because there's going to be a lot of our community that are going to deal with it not from that, but from what goes on in the airways. And somehow, is there a way for you to say that the taxes that CalAM is passing on is really our money, not their money? It all comes from us. So if we can probably handle those same services and provide all those same benefits because we're the taxpayers anyway, correct?
Right.
So is there a way that you can deconstruct that for the public? Thank you.
A little bit. We can't control what CalAM says and however they want to magnify the issue in their context, and it's intended to influence how you think. And we don't have exact answers to a lot of issues. What we do know is that let me back up. The process of a feasibility study is to reveal all the facts about how much it costs to operate, the condition of things, how to go forward, how to manage going forward. What we have now is a he said, she said dilemma, and nobody necessarily, and I say this kind of loosely, but they may not believe what CalAm, they may not believe what we say either. The point is, Measure J is designed to get the facts. We want the facts out in public, and we can't control what that's going to be. We're just convinced that 87% of the country who gets their water from public agencies or do something that they're satisfied with. And we're in the side of corporate, which doesn't have those same aspects. So until we get the facts, which could still be a year down the road, we can't have a legitimate discussion about these. It's all speculation. We're so convinced that the affordability is there, the difference will be substantial, and the benefit in the short term and the long run will be there. And CalAm's going to do what it does.
Can I add something to the question about the taxes? The corporate taxes that CalAm pays, that pie chart you saw, which is quite a chunk, those leave this community. Those don't pay for any local services. The stuff that pays for the local services is in the operational expenses. That stays here. That's a complete fabrication. None of the money that supports the police or any of the public services leaves our area.
Let me say, yeah, you talked about property taxes. Built into the local budget is an in lieu payment. Public agencies don't pay taxes, but they often pay in lieu payments for schools, parks, whatever, police, because they're part of the community too. That's built into the cost side. It's not, it won't disappear with public ownership. The corporate taxes.
That's what you get out for people who see that ad.
Yeah, you know, I understand.
We'll be running some ads.
Give them that information.
Let me
We'll
also, I'd
do some
just like
ads
to
too.
add on the, because I think part of the question had to do with how do you deal in the political arena with this?
Right.
And here's the reality, and we had this in Felton too. The reality is that the CalAm is using its financial resources, which happen to be your money, to try to control the political process. We've seen this in all, money taints the political process. The only way we fight back is with people power. And that's exactly what public water now is doing. It's going to take us talking to our neighbors, us going door to door, us doing social media, us getting the word out. That's democracy in action, and we have to be engaged to do it. That's how we won in Felton. That's how we got 76% yeses. That's how they won in Ojai. We used the democratic process the way it's supposed to be used. And CalAm's trying to taint and pollute our political process through falsehoods and lies in these ads and in all other pronouncements, in how what makes me mad, I'm from Felton, I get angry, I read the stuff they say about Felton, it's like, what in the world, they'll say anything. So it's gonna take people power to beat the money.
CalAm is probably going to spend maybe $3 or $4 million on this campaign. There's no way that a public citizen group can come up with that money, but we are doing quite a bit of outreach and advertising. We have Facebook, we have Nextdoor. In fact, one of my favorite comments on Nextdoor the other day was, they saw that ad that you're talking about, and she said, that just makes me so angry that they're charging us the highest water rates in the country and taking that money and giving it to charities? She couldn't figure out, that was a total disconnect to her. It's like, what, lower our rates, stop giving the money away.
That's the charity.
Right. Questions?
I understood this was Measure J question, basically. So I understand that Measure J passed. Basically, it allows for feasibility to find out if it's affordable, et cetera, to buy out CalAm, et cetera, and that can take a long period of time, so forth. And during which time, CalAm will proceed, evidently, to take the watershed from Marina by building a desal plant. They've already used it for the other ones you mentioned before already. So if the public, if the Monterey Water District people, you guys take over CalAm, would you continue draining water out of the marina using the desal, but just make things cheaper? Or do you have another plan to get water elsewhere? Our issue is water as well as the price.
the reason Cal-Am's desal is in trouble is because there's likely to be litigation, very, very high odds. Everybody's expecting there's going to be litigated. If that happens, which we expect it will happen, everything comes to a halt, then there's no project going forward for water. So even though we got these big ideas or plan, or Cal-Am does, or even the PUC may approve it, if it gets litigated, everything comes to a stop and we still don't have water. There's an optional, there's an alternative plan in the, trying to get traction before the PUC so that if it's litigated, there's an optional water supply that can come online so that we will not have the problem of everything coming to a halt. One of the other questions about you can't add a bathroom or something or whatever, the granny unit or whatever, because Cal-Am overpumped Carmel River, the state said you have a building moratorium on your area. So until we remove that, the building moratorium is going to stay in place. And we can remove it with water. And there's an alternative going forward that can substitute for Cal-Am's desal if Cal-Am's is litigated. It gets a little complicated because litigation is going to happen. So what happens to our water supply? A lot of us are pushing, and the public agencies around here too are pushing, for this other incremental supply. And people are projecting that that can cover us for the next 10 years. Maybe 20, depending on the growth patterns.
It's the Pure Water Monterey project that George is talking about. The recycled water.
It's recycled water. It's an additional component of reclaimed water.
It could cover all of our water needs for 10 years at half the cost. It's the alternative to Cal-Am's $320 million desal plant that we don't want.
May I say this? I support your efforts, but it seems to me from what you said that the real culprit here is the state PUC. Each community argues with the state's PUC and gets nowhere. Each community is left to fend for themselves and to fight for themselves in the courts. The real problem is the state PUC, which doesn't represent the citizens of the state. How can we let that target get away? Instead of letting each local community, some of them may have meager resources to fight the battle all over again. And I'm impressed. You have two communities that fought the same battle and won, and we're going to follow in their footsteps and fight a third battle, and I predict win. But what about all the other communities in the state that are under the foot of the PUC, that is a completely corrupted institution that doesn't represent the people of the state? We got a governor's race going on here that, by the way, is a contested election. It's not preordained who's going to win it. Why don't we raise our sights to the PUC at the state level and demand the same thing you're demanding here for every community in the state?
Can I answer that? The reason is that California's water is already owned publicly about 85%. So you're talking about the CPUC is only regulating about 15% of the water in California. That's not enough people to overturn the CPUC. I mean, they'll go on with utilities, but it would never work because we're just a small minority of water that's regulated by the PUC now, 15%.
It's clear in the experience of the other two communities. The PUC and the corporate utility just consider them part of the same family. You can't go after one without going after both because they depend on each other. You can't separate those two from things. You can't get a good deal from the Cal-Am unless you get also a good deal from the PUC. The way it works the other way around. You can't separate the PUC from Cal-Am. They go together.
Well,
we need to get out from under both of us.
Who elects the members?
And the only process available to us is to go public.
I don't think you want to double date.
Let me just add that we in Felton, you're absolutely right in your statement that the PUC is a problem. As I said, we called it the Private Utilities Commission, not the Public Utility. We complained to our state senator, we complained to our assemblyman, and the message we got back was, that is too huge a nut to crack. And we decided we're going to work on what we can change in our own community, because we didn't, just as Melanie said, it was something that was beyond what we could do. Changing the PUC is going to be a huge, huge effort. So I commend your understanding of the issue, but act locally.
Could I, my name is Joe Haddon. Until a couple of years ago, I lived in Ojai. And while we were there, we had our Can-Am water supply, and they did very little maintenance. We had a very old pipe system, and you'd see these little signs over the holes. They pitch them one at a time. They waited for one to break out and then to go. And we didn't like it. We went through buildings, meetings like this. We had bumper stickers, and people woke up to it. And the reason was there was a foundation of almost annual rate increases, not modest ones, but double-digit ones. And if you had a map of California, you would see like freckles scattered up and down its length and width. Can-Am water companies, they're everywhere. And the charm of it is, to the people who produce them, is they're all independent. You can't go at them with one kill for everything. They have to go one at a time. And Felton, while I was living in Ojai, ran its successful vote and got it going. So we went up to Felton from Ojai and hired the attorney that represented Felton to come down and do it in Ojai, and he did. And we are much better off. And after the vote came out and we stopped them, as you noted, they went on a frenzy of repairs, suddenly appeared out of nowhere. But they are a mini, it was like that creature that Hercules, every time it hit the ground, it grew another head or something. That's what Cal-Am was like. Anyway, we're here now, and this is a good cause, and you will prevail.
And speaking of good causes, what I wanted to make sure that we don't forget to say is the more you can help us, these volunteer forms were on your seat. We need all kinds of volunteers out there talking to their neighbors, taking yard signs as you leave, putting them up. We need donations. The more donations we get, the more likely we are to be able to run some TV spots to counteract Cal-Am's lies. And 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to be doing another Public Water Now town hall here with Missoula, Montana, who also bought out their private water system and successfully did what Felton and Ojai and hopefully we are about to do. So if you can volunteer some time in the next 60 days, that would really help do this, push us over the top to get Measure J passed. Questions?
I was just going to say thank you for coming here, because not only did you win in your community, but now you're helping other people, and that's very valuable. I was just going to say that the fellow who was here a minute ago was talking about the ads he saw from Cal-Am, and I know that it's very expensive to do this, but it would be great when Cal-Am comes with a little statement to contradict it in our paper that goes out, or ads, directly contradict it. Because people just don't read the details. They just see the thing, and then if they see the answer about how that's not right, and here's what's really happening, I think that's, some people really are reading a limited amount about all this. I think it helps so much.
We are. I mean, we're doing as much as we can, and we're reaching thousands of people on Facebook and Nextdoor.
Thank you.
Don't forget, Cal-Am has a boatload of money they're putting into this campaign, so expect that.
And whose money is it again?
Yeah, a boatload of our money.
I want to point out one person in the audience, but I want to share the limelight. Alvin Edwards in the back is, there are 2 vacancies on the Water District Board this election. 2 of them, only 2. Alvin's running for one of the seats, which is in Seaside. I'm running for the other seat, which is Seaside and Monterey. We're the only 2 elections on the Water District. If we both win, and if Jay wins, we're expecting all 3 to win, but at least we're committed to a robust feasibility study. There's no bullshit in the feasibility study. It's got to be all factual, it's got to be understandable, it's got to be clear, it's got to be convincing. If it's not, we're buying a pig in a poke. Nobody wants to do that. We want it as robust and as open as possible to know what all the issues are. And I think, you know, all Al and I can do is say that, you know, if we win, we're as interested in getting all the facts out in public and for discussion. Then the decision can come later. You know, just wanted to share that, but I don't want to point that out. I think you're next.
Good luck to you guys. Gotta win. When we were talking earlier about the pat on the back that Cal-Am is doing for itself, you guys have to remember that it's not Cal-Am's money that's patting themselves on the back. It's money from each of you in your water bill. If you look at your water bill, there is a portion that goes to pay for indigent people, for people who can't afford their water. Cal-Am is not paying for this woman that's in the ad with the kids jumping up and down on the trampoline and she's out of a job and can't pay for her water bill. Cal-Am is not subsidizing that woman. You are, through your water bill, it is on your bill. So I don't understand how they can go out and tell everybody we're the good guy when the good guy is sitting in this room and everybody else that pays their water bill.
In the unlikely event that the feasibility study doesn't bring the favorable results that public water now needs, is there a plan B? And can you elaborate on what it might be if there is?
Plan B is nothing changes. Cal-Am stays in the picture, PUC stays in the picture protecting them, and we're going to have 50 more years of what we've already had 50 years of. Nothing will change. The only possibility of change is to have a feasibility study that shows the value, the pros and cons, the benefits, the liabilities, everything. Shows it all, so the public gets a real good picture of what it's about on public ownership. And we want that. They've kind of done the same thing. They went through the process a little different, not exactly our process. But the community got the facts, the community expressed themselves, and their corporate water left town because they were purchased. That's all we can do is try to do the same thing. Even though we don't know the numbers yet. But
we wouldn't have put 6 years into this if we didn't know that it's going to,
Understand.
as George says, pencil out. Because you can look at the numbers, and it's obvious how much profit, $19 million a year in corporate profit and taxes, gets taken out of our community by Cal-Am. That's a lot of money to pay low-interest bonds.
And just a suggestion, on your yard signs, you have a lot of real estate. I think another gentleman or lady were suggesting that if you could put a brief, hard-hitting fact on these signs, and I think you have enough space, for example, that we're paying, you know, the most in the country for water, I think it would go a long way. Yes, on J may not be on everyone's lips with all the measures, and just, you know, you can really drive it home that way, and maybe it's a less expensive way to, you know, get some of the salient facts out.
That's a good suggestion, and that's the plan. And next week, showing up in 35,000 households is our first campaign flyer of this cycle.
The one that was on your chair when you came in will go out to, it mailed out actually today to 35,000 households.
Thank you.
So everyone will get the story straight in their mailbox from us. 35,000. That's every voter household on the peninsula in the water management district.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be great to have more information on the sign, but it's person to person. It's knocking on doors, it's talking to your neighbors, getting a precinct list from the office and walking door to door. Right? We have, Cal-Am's doing us a favor. We're actually building a community. I've been working on this for 5 years myself. I lived on the peninsula for 30 years. I know more people in the last 5 years than I met in the first 25 as I've been working on it. So we all need to go out there and get to know our neighbors. That's the way we're going to win.
So one more question and we should wrap it up.
Yeah, I just want to say Ojai's experience is, Richard has it right. I spoke to my daughter
this evening. She lives in Ojai, has 2 acres and an orchard on it. Her water bills are dramatically down. I mean, like, dramatically. She is thrilled. It's like night and day. And infrastructure problems were, all kinds of breaks and stuff. It's just so important for us to make this step forward. And they're in a community not that different from us, in many ways similar. Let's just get it done.
Sign the volunteer sheet on your way out.
So thank the panel.
Thank you. Thanks so much.